Over the past few years, Genshin Impact developer MiHoYo has proven that even free-to-play mobile games can deliver super high-quality experiences. And with its next game, Zenless Zone Zero, the studio is ready to take that notion to the next level and establish itself as a top RPG creator. Will this game prove to be a home run, though? Well, let's dive in and find out. First, Zenless Zone Zero is a modern Genshin Impact. While it doesn't exactly have the catchiest name in the world, Zenless Zone Zero is probably going to set the world on fire upon release. It's everything that you've ever wanted from a Genshin Impact game, set in a modern setting. Yes, it's still an RPG and you can still play as a crazy mecha anime girl with cat ears and a massive sword, but we were already expecting these things from MiHoYo. So what's new? Well, for starters, the setting looks absolutely bonkers, with a modern city that's full of skyscrapers and weird monsters. Honestly, it kind of looks like Scarlet Nexus, which is another game with a similar premise. However, what the game doesn't have is the incredible polish and combat mechanics of HoYoverse games. If you've been a Genshin Impact player, you know what you're getting here. The characters in Zenless Zone Zero are still just as unique and fun to play with, if not more. Oh, and the weapon variety is also fantastic here, with sick magical swords and guns to everything in between. And of course, we can also expect a ton of costumes and customizable cosmetics on top of character rolling systems. So what's the story of Zenless Zone Zero? Genshin Impact's story hooks you right in from the start, as you're separated from your twin sibling and thrown into the fantasy world of Teviat. However, even during these dire times, the game constantly tries to keep things positive with Palman by your side, and some funny side quests too. MiHoYo trying a different approach for Triple Z though, as the story seems a lot darker this time around. Zenless Zone will transport us to a post-apocalyptic world that's been ravaged by monsters. Most of the civilization has been wiped out by a supernatural disaster called the Hollows. In essence, they're just portals that pop out of thin air and then spawn ethereal monsters into the world, which to be fair, does sound like a pretty rough time. As for the players, they'll take control of characters called proxies, who are able to harness the power of these hollows and travel through these pocket dimensions. And obviously, you'll be slaying a ton of monsters on your adventure too. Now, you may think that this is a pretty cliche premise, like a broken civilization being attacked by monsters, but then some heroes have special powers to fight them. We've all seen it a million times before. Having said that, it's the charm and charisma of MiHoYo's story that are the real draw, even when their ideas may not be as original as we'd like. Next, gameplay is Zenless Zone's strong suit. Despite getting only a brief look at the gameplay of Zenless Zone Zero, we can instantly tell that the combat is going to feel buttery smooth. This is perhaps the area where the HoYoverse games shine the brightest, as every sword swing feels crisp and responsive. Plus, even their borrowed elements from other games like Breath of the Wild are perfectly executed, which makes the open world so much richer. So it's pretty much a guarantee that exploration in this game will also be top-notch with great attention to detail. It's the gorgeous art style that combines anime and realistic elements together. But this game looks like it's gonna take the cake when it comes to visual quality. The animations of each character as they float effortlessly around the battlefield are so well done that it almost feels like a Ghibli movie. Oh, and just the sheer graphical fidelity also looks way higher than Genshin, despite the game also coming to mobile phones. And now, closed beta signups are already open. Perhaps the most impressive thing about the whole reveal was the fact that we don't actually wait for very long to get our hands on this game. At the end of the livestream, MiHoYo announced that they've opened up the floodgates for a closed beta test and will soon release it for people who signed up. Also, just in case you're wondering, yes, this is also a free-to-play game, and it makes perfect sense as well. You see, Genshin Impact has made over $3 billion in sales since its launch, and that's all down to their microtransactions. Apparently, if you've got anime characters, wacky weapons, great animations, and some decent endgame content in your game, then you've got a cash cow on your hands, and Genshin checks all of those boxes. The biggest driver of this revenue, though, is perhaps the fact that the console-quality AAA games are available on mobile phones. Usually, phones don't really get these experiences, and most app stores are filled with exploitive free-to-play garbage. But HoYoverse has found a way to somehow make these games look incredible on mobile phones, and monetize them in a way that doesn't feel terrible. And while we don't quite know what the reception will be for Zenless Zone Zero, it's still pretty safe to assume that it's gonna dominate the video game market given the developer's pedigree. Next in other news, Saudi Arabia buys 5% stake in Nintendo. Being a Japanese company, Nintendo isn't exactly open to Western ideas and influences in its culture. And even though the company's American branch has slightly shifted that idea, it still remains in its cultural bubble, doing its own thing. However, that could kind of change over time as Saudi Arabia, yes, the country, has decided to buy a 5% stake in the video game maker. According to a filing with Japan's finance ministry, the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund acquired a 5.01% stake in Nintendo Corporation on Wednesday. Of course, this is not the first games company that they've invested in, having bought shares in Capcom, EA, Activision, and Take-Two earlier. Oh, and the fund also owns 96% of Japanese developer SNK, so it's not new territory for them at all. Plus, if you've been following the fund's activity, you'd know that they've got tons of other ventures as well as football clubs and global golf leagues. Why are they putting their eggs in so many baskets though? Well, according to the reports, there is an effort to make the Saudi economy less reliant on profits from oil. Now, this reasoning is fine and everything. However, the issue arises when you look at the Saudi government's poor human rights record record, as they've been known to do some really bad stuff, including alleged murder of a journalist. So when they became the 5th largest shareholder of Nintendo stock, it obviously made a lot of people uncomfortable. Halo Infinite's last Spartan standing is now available on all maps. Halo Infinity has had a slow start to its life, with 343 only adding a couple of maps and a few modes almost 6 months after its launch. However, one of the redeeming factors of this lackluster second season is the last Spartan standing mode, which is a mixture of battle royale and elimination. 12 players dive into a big map with 6 lives each, and as they earn XP by getting kills, their weapons get upgraded. With that said, while the game modes have been brilliant, it's been held back by the fact that it's only been playable on a single map until now. 343 Industries has just announced that the last Spartan standing game mode will now be available to play on all big team maps, including Fragmentation, Deadlock, and High Power. If this is still not enough of a battle royale fix for you, then you might have to wait for a few months, as rumors of a completely separate mode have been circulating lately. Developed by Certain Affinity, this new way to play Halo will deliver the true bona fide BR experience to players. The reveal date for that mode, however, is still unconfirmed, but if we had to make an educated guess, there's a pretty good chance that it'll show up some point during Microsoft's Xbox and Bethesda's Games Showcase next month. Battlefield 2042 dials back the player limit in Breakthrough. Battlefield 2042 was one of the biggest disappointments of last year. Touted as a comeback for the series, it completely failed to deliver on most of its promises, and what we actually got was a broken, buggy mess with missing features. For context, this game didn't even have a scoreboard during matches for its first few months, so it was always destined to fail. As a result, the game lost hundreds of thousands of players within mere weeks, and to this day, its player count continues to dwindle. However, it seems like things are gonna go from bad to worse, as DICE has just announced that it's reducing the player count in Breakthrough from 128 to 64. Of course, the whole draw for Battlefield is its massive all-out warfare, and having 128 players definitely helped with that. So it's a bummer that we're losing features rather than gaining them. According to DICE though, this change will help them with balancing the game and adding more quality of life improvements and fixes. It's also worth noting that the Battlefield developer is now working under the guidance of Respawn's Vince Zampella, so it could actually be him setting things straight. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Battlefield 2042 has any chance of coming back from this? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next one!